1. The bicycle tires left a single track across the rippled tide flat. The rider pedaled slowly, obviously enjoying a sunset outing, admiring the silvery glow of the chalky gray strand, the creamy gold of the gently waving sea oats on their wind-sculpted dunes. Every so often a weathered gray boardwalk provided access from the beach to the homes hidden behind the dunes. But the rider was oblivious to the tangy salt scent and silken caress of the breeze now flowing back to sea as the sun set. Instead, it was the emptiness of the scene that pleased, for no one moved on this stretch of Broward's Rock beach so far as the eye could see. So the first objective had been met, an unobserved approach. At the next boardwalk, the rider dismounted and dropped the bicycle on its side. The scuff of sneakers against the sand-filmed wooden slats couldn't be heard over the rustle of the breeze through the sea oats. It took not quite 30 seconds to reach the patio behind the Buckners' rambling beachfront house. A pink and yellow plastic seahorse rocked in the shamrock-shaped pool. Blue terry-cloth beach towels hung from webbed chairs. A Fortune magazine fluttered on a cane table, held in place by carelessly dropped, salt-rimmed goggles. "Sandy? Dick?" The call hung unanswered in the hush of twilight. The bicyclist stepped over a furled beach umbrella, called out again, and knocked sharply on the French doors. But just as expected, no answer came. The Buckners were not at home. There was always noise, motion, confusion, and disarray when Dick and Sandy were there. A warm flush of anticipation suffused the bicyclist, and when the door unlocked, swung in, there was a sharp, heady sense of triumph. Of course Dick and Sandy left their doors unlocked. They were careless, messy, and heedless. The den smelled of pipe smoke and an odd combination of dried newsprint and paints from Sandy's collages. The Sunday papers littered the floor. Across the room, the last shafts from the setting sun glittered on the glass panes of the gun case. Now crumpled gardening gloves were pulled from a jacket pocket and donned. A gloved hand twisted the handle. An ugly twist of sheer fury flamed for an instant. The hand rattled the handle. Locked. Locked! But they were so careless, so idiotically undisciplined. The haze of anger cleared. Cold, analytical thought returned. The gloved hand swept above the case, and a key clattered to the floor. Less than a minute later, the bicyclist rode off into the dusk. 2 target pistols in a capacious carryall thudded against the right leg as the rider pumped, a solitary figure against the dusky sky, enjoying the solitude of an evening outing on the beach. She switched the Volvo heater on high, but she was still shivering when she turned up the dark, rutted road leading to her treehouse. A hot shower, a cup of decaffeinated cappuccino, and her car lights illuminated the dark red Porsche parked in her drive. Slewing her car to a stop, she erupted out the door, shouting, "Max! Max, where are you?" He met her halfway down her steps, and suddenly she wasn't wet or cold or tired any longer. He grinned and held out his arms, obviously her same old insouciant Max, though God knows he should have sense enough to look a little worried. In the midst of their embrace, she managed a muffled, "Max, you'll never guess." He held her at arm's length. "Practicing for the wedding relays?" "Relays?" "Yeah, I just got off the phone with Laurel. She called you. She was sorry to have missed you, but said she'll be back in touch soon. Anyway, she and I thought it would be terrific fun to have our own version of the Olympics, and—" Her skin glowed a cheerful pink from the hot water and a brisk rub-down. She slipped into seersucker shorts and a T-shirt, gave her hair a brisk brushing, and hurried into the living room. Max was draped comfortably over the wicker couch. Her heart flipped cheerfully at the sight of him, his sturdy, solid, nice body just where it should be. He looked up, and she saw the beginnings of distraction in his appreciative blue eyes. But not now. Now she wanted to concentrate on murder and its nefarious handmaidens, lust, greed, hatred, and fear. "What do you think?" she asked quickly. "I think you look very, very—" "About the murder," sternly. He didn't bother to stifle a yawn. "Annie, I've spent a long day, a very long day, listening to Posey bellow about nothing else. I don't want to talk about Shane, think about his demise, or concern myself in any way with a problem which rightfully belongs to the duly constituted authorities of Beaufort County." "But, Max—" He rose, and now the gleam in his dark blue eyes was unmistakable. "Murder has its charms," he admitted, "but no charms to compare with yours." He held out his arms. How could any red-blooded American girl resist that declaration? And Annie was patriotic to the core. A good evening begets a good morning. As Annie poured Max's third cup of coffee, she gauged his humor. A1. So? "I'll bet the chief's hot on the trail." Max lifted his blonde head from the morning paper. "Hmm?" "You know, the stuff I found on Shane's boat." "Ah, yes, in your daring swim through the perilous waters of the harbor." Well, she was rather proud of her exploit. Max grinned and dropped the paper beside his crumb-filled plate. "Okay, sweetie, it was great." His eyes crinkled thoughtfully. "You know, I wonder if he was running cocaine?" Annie carefully refrained from whooping in triumph. She'd finally lured Max back to talking about the case. She did pop up and dart into the living room to return with a pad of paper. Quickly she sketched a copy of the sheet she'd found in Shane's gym bag. "Drugs," she repeated speculatively. Max was so smart sometimes. "That's the only thing I know besides rock music that pays on the order of $1 million. But if he was running drugs here, why a payoff in the Los Angeles International Airport on September 6th? He took the pad from her. "Maybe the payoff is here, and that's just a reservation to go somewhere." She munched on a muffin. "I thought the drug runners around here had their own operations. I mean, why would there be an L.A. connection for cocaine coming in here from Colombia? I thought the L.A. people were tied up to the pipeline from Mexico." "Not being privy to the latest intelligence from the drug smugglers, I haven't the least idea." He shrugged and dropped the pad on the breakfast table, then swatted at a mosquito. That was the only hazard of eating breakfast on her deck, but Annie considered fending off insects a small price to pay for the delight in watching the sun spread gold across the marsh. Max drank deeply of his coffee, then sighed happily, at peace with the world. Well, Salter can nose around and find out. Annie was a little miffed at this abrupt dismissal of her gloriously garnered information. Who had gallantly braved jellyfish and damn cold water? And it was all so intriguing, the sums of money, the airplane tickets. Max, what if Mrs. Bill Ford was going to be Janet? Or Cindy? My God, talk about motives for murder. She grabbed the pad and flapped it wildly in rising excitement. Max was unimpressed. "Look, we can imagine scenarios from here to Hollywood. What matters are facts. Let's see what Salter comes up with." It was like being deprived of a brand-new toy. She wanted to sniff and scratch at every possible interpretation of Shane's list. But Max had a point. "You're worse than Sergeant Joe Friday," she groused. "Actually, reason and not guesswork solves crimes," he abjured, taking the pad, flipping to a clean sheet, and scrawling rapidly. She decided to ignore the implication in order to facilitate premarital harmony. He handed the pad to her with a flourish. "Here's a reasoned approach. Most likely in order of decreasing probability. TK, Sam, Eugene, Cindy, Carla, Bert. Least likely in order of increasing probability. Henny, Janet, Hugo, Arthur." She began doubtfully. "Why, Annie, it's obvious." Max was supremely confident, and just short of insulting. It reminded her why she was not enamored of Sherlock Holmes. "Look at it," Max instructed. "Who had the most free time? The people on list number 1. They could easily wander downstairs for a soda or go to the John, wait until nobody was noticing, and get Shane's attention. Ergo, they are the most probable. Then flip the coin. Why would Henny, for example, who was off stage only twice, try to murder Shane during that period?" "I've never suspected Henny." He was impatient. "I know, that's just an example. I mean, by a stretch of the imagination, Henny could just possibly have managed physically to commit the crime, although we certainly don't have a motive."
Sample complete. Ready to continue?